I just think we're waiting for Aaron. I'll be right back. Yeah, I'm here, guys. How are y'all doing? I expected to see Aaron here when I showed up, but for some reason he's not here yet. So we're just going to wait. Yeah, this is a really interesting story. I'm sure you're all going to get a kick out of it. This essentially has to do with the unbelievable hypocrisy of David Miscavige. Oh, here he comes. There you go. Hey, listen, I jumped in, Aaron. I'm already live because I thought you were here.
You are not.
Yeah.
You can't be live. I'm the one hosting the thing.
Okay, then maybe I'm not.
Wait,
but
how did you go live if I'm the one hosting the event?
I did exactly you did. I followed your instructions. I went there. It said go live, and I hit go live. Okay.
All right. Give me a sec. All right. Hey, guys, hold on. I'm going to do my intro still. Here we go.
Yeah, you are.
Hey, Ron.
Here.
Why didn't you say it the first time I said Ron?
Because it's pronounced Aaron.
You done messed up, Ron.
You done messed up, Mitch Brisker.
Oh, thank you very much for that. You're right. I followed your instructions. What was that line from Animal House? You screwed up. You trusted me.
I don't know. I grew up in a cult. I didn't see that movie.
Yeah, well, I went to art school, so I don't know much more than you. But anyway, so it's great to see you again. Great to be back.
Always good to do this. So we're talking about Russia. We're talking about Vladimir Putin. We're talking about David Miscavige. So
right.
you'd I almost want to go back to the text that you said about this. Oh yeah.
Oh, well, that was the Cliff's Notes version.
Well, no. I just wanted to tell everyone how this came up because, Scientology launched this TV network. I don't know why they call it a network when it's just a channel. Why do they call it a network, Mitch?
Because it appeals to the donors who paid for it. You're right. It's not officially a network.
Okay. So they created, when they first launched it, were they calling just the direct TV channel their network, or did they call their website the network? Like
no, they kind of backed into it. They just had an umbrella term, the Scientology network, and it included all these things. Okay. Miscavige wanted to say it was a TV station, so he paid this ungodly amount of money to AT&T, who owned DirecTV, and they were more than happy to take it because if you look, they're up in the 230s channel numbers, right? And if you go to DirecTV, I mean, you won't be able to because nobody has it. And you go up to the 230s, it's mostly empty. There's a few televangelists, stuff like that. Because, they put the Scientology TV, the network, they put them up with all the other religious programming. And it was really just done to say we're on TV. But it's just DirecTV. DirecTV is only on the East Coast and the West Coast. They hardly exist in the middle of the country. It's really ridiculous.
Okay, so as a part of his whole gimmick of having this TV station, he's like, "All right, we're gonna feature some like real documentaries made by real people in the real world, not just."
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but there's more context to it. But you're right about that. But there's more context.
What do you mean more context? I was halfway through a sentence.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. But I could kind of tell where you were going with it. But it goes.
Well, go ahead.
It goes earlier. It goes to the very heart of why he said he was going to set it up to begin with. And that goes back to Freedom Magazine. Scientology had years ago, they launched this magazine called Freedom Magazine. It's basically an OSA operation to look like they deliver legitimate news stories. And they would hire legitimate journalists. Most recent one I can remember, they had a guy do a piece on the California drought. Really good piece. Like if it wasn't in Freedom, So, but see, they were trying to position themselves to be like, you know, the representing the underrepresented and you know, being fighters for human rights and so forth. And so when Miscavige announced that he was internally that he was going to do this TV station, have a broadcast facility, the whole purpose of it was to take that same idea of freedom and take it online. That was the purpose of it. He never did that. That's so he started looking for partnerships. You know, he likes to have these partnerships, like that guy you reported on, the fake minister at the trial.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a partnership, right? Let's find people, partner up with them, whether we have to hire them or whatever. So, first partnership he tried to have with the studio was with the B'nai B'rith. You know, it's a Jewish benevolent organization. They raise money, and apparently they used to do their telethon at KCT, the former owners of the SMP facility. So a producer who used to produce that show reached out and said, "Hey, do you want me to, you know, how about we keep doing the telethon here?" And Miscavige was like, "Great, let's do a partnership with the B'nai B'rith, and we'll give them the studio for free. All they have to do is pay for food and some maybe power." Of course, they never took him up on it because they're aligned with the NOI, the Nation of Islam. And I mean, could you imagine the fallout from that, right? The B'nai B'rith, like one night they'd be Nation of Islam programming, and the next night it'd be B'nai B'rith. I mean, it would just be a major disaster. I never heard they turned it down for that, but the second I heard about it, I'm like, those people are not going to come near Scientology. So the next idea he had was, let's reach out to some documentarians who have legitimately made films about human rights and, you know, sustainability and pro-environmental stuff and heartwarming stories of, you know, uplifting stories of personal triumph. And let's offer these people a platform for their films. And the people were like, sure, here's how much it costs to rent my film. So, which he thought he was doing them a favor. So then he asked me if I would curate the first season, like figure out what documentaries we should put on there. And because Scientology was being hammered in Russia, right? They were all been outlawed. I mean, the Scientology in Moscow had been outlawed. Scientologists have been jailed. So I proposed doing basically what he said, using the network as a way to fight back against the enemies. And I said, let's put some documentaries on here exposing Russian human rights abuses, of which there were quite a few notable ones. And he said, no effing way. I'm not going to do anything to upset the Russians. And that's why I contacted you.
It's so interesting on so many levels, because it's sort of like, well, you know, the Scientology organizations in Russia have been raided a couple of times in the last few years. Yeah. And I've even gotten some conflicting information on whether Scientology has actually been banned. And I did a video about this, and I was like, I want to correct the record on this. They haven't been banned because they're still there. And then I got some information from someone else that was like, no. Technically speaking, they've been banned. Somehow they're slipping through the cracks. And yeah. Do you happen to know the truth of the matter?
Well, I only know what's on Wikipedia, and this does not, it's not contrary to anything I heard when I was in, that as of 2015 in Moscow, it's banned. Like, I don't know how they're sneaking by. And there was a St. Petersburg church was shut down, and a couple of people there were jailed. And it's considered an illegal group in Russia. Like,
even though, and actually, I request out to any you know, SPTV watchers who are in Moscow or St. Petersburg, please, I would love it if somebody would send me some photos of, just go online, Google the Church of Scientology, or maybe they don't call it a church over there. Maybe they call it something else.
I don't know. It might be a Dianetics center. I know they shut down a Dianetics center, so they might try that as well.
Yeah. So I'd love to see some actual evidence whether the Scientology, the Dianetics and Scientology organizations in Moscow and St. Pete are open, right, operational, and any insight you can share as to how they continue to operate if they are in fact banned. Right. But the thing is, like, Miscavige kind of puts himself up on this pedestal as being this warrior against suppression and bigotry, and it's like only when you know it's safe, though, right, Dave? Only when you know it's safe,
right? And there's another part of this. Okay, so you know, there's a bunch of super rich Russian Scientologists. As far as I know, it was Russian Scientologists who paid for the flag building. like literally, you know, a few non-Russians, but mostly it was Russians. And I don't understand the politics of this because, you know, I went to art school, right? But they really like Putin, even though he's shut Scientology down in Russia, which I completely don't understand this.
You're saying the
They
rich
like,
Russian Scientologists love Putin?
oh yeah, absolutely, because it's a nationalist thing. It's like he's given them pride back in their country, and that's a senior thing to the fact that he's shut Scientology down. And I don't understand this at all. I wish somebody would explain to me how this works. But I also think that Miscavige is not wanting to use the platform for the purpose he said it was for, was to call people out, because he also didn't want to anger these whales who they didn't want to see Russia and Putin impugned while they're giving money.
Wow.
So it's just kind of a mess.
Wow. It is fascinating that Scientology could be, it seems, essentially banned in Russia. And yet most of Scientology's new Sea Org recruits seem to come from Russia.
Yeah.
And the Russians, if you run into a Russian person in Clearwater, it's almost a guaranteed thing that they are a Scientologist. I mean, there's so many Russian Scientologists here in Clearwater, even public, not just Sea Org members. And I've never known how all these pieces fit together to form the puzzle that actually makes sense.
Yeah, ask them what they think of Putin next if you ever have an opportunity, and they'll tell you he's brought. You know, he did some amazing things. There was a Vice Television once did a great show that explained why people like him, because it's all the embargoes from all over the world. Like they couldn't get Gucci, they couldn't get their like 5-star designer brands and all that stuff. So he said, screw it, we're going to do them ourselves. And he actually created this renaissance in Russia, supporting artists and designers to create their own luxury goods. So there's this kind of a national pride they have in the guy, while he's also trying to start World War III and kicking Scientology out of the country. And I don't understand it at all. I really don't.
Huh. I wonder what's your feeling on whether his reluctance to do content critical of Vladimir Putin. Do you think it's more fear of Putin or more of upsetting the big donors who are Russian and kind of like Putin?
I can't separate those two things in my mind. I would suspect that it's the donors because he's closer to them. He's probably living in Clearwater, and he probably sees those guys. And I know that he has interactions with them, because I remember when we were delayed opening Scientology Media Productions, and he kind of had a tantrum one day, like he threw a fit, like he threw a little Davy fit where his veins, you can see the veins in his neck because he's like really mad. And he said, I have to answer, what am I going to tell the donors? Pound the desk. What am I going to tell the donors? And I thought, geez, is that what this is all about? We're trying to start the station and figure out the programming and do it really right. And it's just like, what am I going to tell the donors? Because it was so that leads me to believe there is some kind of a connection between big donors and him personally. So I would tend to lean that way, but all I know is what I heard, which is, no, we're not going to do anything to upset the Russians, because there's too much trouble over there. But then I knew Russian Scientologists who like Putin. It's weird.
It's so fascinating because, I mean, he does not hesitate to say how horrible the French government is because of their bigotry against Scientology, or how Germany is the only completely SP nation in the entire world or whatever. Like, so he'll criticize the French government, he'll criticize the Belgian government. Belgian, that's a real thing, right? I grew up in
that is
the German government. He'll criticize the American government, the American institutions. Everything's psych influence this, psych influence that. And yet there's got to be some rich donors from Germany and France and the US. I guess the US not really a nationalist sort of don't you dare talk bad about our government in the US kind of thing, I guess, right? Like, it's okay to shit on the government, really.
Yeah, I mean, but there's the America First crowd that
But even those guys will shit on the government.
Yeah, you're right. To some degree, they will. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah. I mean, I went and found a wonderful documentary. I wish I could think of the name of it. I'd recommend it, about young people in their tweens and teens, the struggles that they go through to audition for the Bolshoi Ballet. I mean, and the history of the Mariinsky Theater where Tchaikovsky premiered the Nutcracker Suite. I mean, that's the kind of stuff we showed, about this country that has just completely brutalized Scientology. So,
wow, I'm also surprised. I can't think of another example that's been presented to me where Miscavige, it was like the tail wagging the dog. It's the Russian donors that are dictating Miscavige's actions. Usually, like, everything's coming down from the top. Miscavige is just, his orders flow down and everyone else falls in suit. But he seems to be genuinely concerned about pissing off the Russian donors.
I think donors in general, but yeah, definitely the Russians.
I mean, I'm sure, yes, donors in general, but here's what I mean, Mitch. Like, sure, there's so many things Miscavige does that to me would piss off donors.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, how about taking 20 years to get a building project done? How about taking 30 years to execute a real estate strategy? How about, taking 20 years to fundraise for L. Ron Hubbard Hall? Eventually, if I was a donor, I'd be like, what the hell's your problem, dude? Can you not execute on any of your plans? Or re-releasing, the golden age of tech 2. I'd be like, what is your problem, dude? You're going to make me redo the bridge another time? Or, all the OT8s back on OT7. Like, everyone's got to go back and do objectives. Like, if I was a donor, I'd be like, give me a damn break. This is absurd. But he does these things anyway.
Yeah.
There's something different about this, though, to him.
Yeah, I was just going to say I know you didn't ask me for an explanation, but that is life inside the bubble. I mean, this guy can't do anything wrong. As long as you're in that reality distortion field, it just makes sense. It's just, it's your fault. It's your fault. You're an SP.
Well, the exception seems to be if he were to put out a documentary about a Russian human rights abuses, that seems to be something he doesn't think he can get away with.
No, he can't get away with that. But yeah, and they do get, I mean, just to point out the hypocrisy. I mean, you even talked about how many disabled people there are in Scientology, right?
Close to zero, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely zero. And, I worked at Gold for years, and there's not one wheelchair ramp on that entire property. And there's buildings that were constructed since the American Disabilities Act was enacted. So these are federal laws. They have no wheelchair ramps. The one building up there that has 3 floors, there's not an elevator. These are all, again, I don't know how they got away with it. Somehow they bribed the county officials or something, because they had to get permits for these things. And occupancy use permits, whatever they're called, certificate of occupancy. There's no accommodations on that entire base for handicapped people. It's the only place in the entire United States I have ever set foot on that has no accommodation for handicapped people. And yet on the net, with some of the documentaries we showed, I showed a documentary about a girl who had a congenital birth defect. She was born with no arms. On her when she was 16, she got her pilot's license, did her first solo flight, wearing a T-shirt that said, "Look, Ma, no hands." And she became a black belt in Taekwondo, literally, and ended up marrying her instructor. This was such a beautiful, heartwarming story. That young woman has not a chance of taking advantage of Scientology, and yet they showed that documentary on the showcase as a piece of uplifting programming, as a feel-good programming. And I got to tell you, in hindsight, I was really disgusted by that.
So does Miscavige tell us a bit more about this whole documentary showcase that you said he asked you to curate the first season?
Yeah.
What was, and if you've already said it, I just,
okay, no
forgive
problem.
me, but did he really just think if we promote documentaries from non-Scientologists, it's going to give us good PR?
Yeah, halo effect. Initially he thought they would want to give him the documentaries because they'd have this glossy platform. But that's not how the business works. They're a thing called distribution fees. In the case of broadcast, they're called broadcast license fees. They would pay for a limited number of showings over maybe a 6 or 10 week period. Maybe they'd get 10 showings, and that's it. And then, you've seen the documentaries they do with these filmmakers. They bring them in, love bomb the crap out of them. I mean, they don't get a lot of goodies, these independent documentary filmmakers, but they get brought into this very slick studio, and they get makeup and wardrobe, and they get interviewed, and then their interviews get cut into promos. They really weave these documentaries into their overall programming and message. And yes, they do expect to have a halo effect, the same way they did with Freedom Magazine, where you have a legitimate journalist write a legitimate article about something that's a real concern to the public, and then you fold that in to your overall message, which is Scientology propaganda.
You mentioned something that I don't actually know about. Like, so you said Miscavige, and I'm going to ask you to explain. Okay. You said Miscavige thought that these documentarians would basically just give it to him. How does it actually work? What ended up happening?
Well, what happens is somebody, just like with any piece of media that is distributed onto platforms, it's usually with a distributor. Sometimes the distributor is the company itself that made it. And you contact them and you say, we would like to acquire the rights for a limited number of whatever the menu is for a number of plays. And it's like, how many times you want to play it? How long do you want to play it? Here's the price list. Here's what it costs. And then you sign a contract, and then you have the rights to play that over that period. So they would do it for whatever the season was, right? And, they try to put together a program like that would make them look that they were super responsible, because why else would they play this stuff? So
basically he ended up having to pay for the content.
Yeah, absolutely. He did.
And he didn't expect to.
No, he initially didn't expect to, but that just became, okay, fine, we'll pay for it.
Okay, so it's not like he purchased these things outright. He doesn't have exclusive rights to these things. He just purchased broadcast rights.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I'm assuming because I believe that didn't exist on their on-demand on their app, that there's some additional, there must be an on-demand right as well. I mean, although that's one of the reasons we have a strike right now. But
do you think this service, this gimmick, has actually in any way truly helped any of the documentarians that participated in it?
Well, it might have helped them pay their rent for a month. I mean, that's a real thing. I mean, probably the most famous one they managed to get a hold of, one that I put in the list on the first season, was called Men in the Arena, which is about two soccer players from Somalia who managed to get all the way to out of Somalia and into some world championship situation. It's a really beautiful documentary, and it has gained a lot of traction. I don't even think they could show it again. They probably couldn't afford it. So maybe that helped them. I don't know, but I mean, probably not, because who watches that? I mean,
that's what I know.
Nobody watches the Scientology network.
Right.
I mean, there's a few documentaries on there I wish your viewers would watch, because they'd start asking some really interesting questions, specifically the one about the preservation of the tech and the one about SMP, the studio itself, especially the preservation of the tech. I wish people would just go to the network and watch it. They would have so many interesting questions about that.
The stuff that Scientology airs on its direct TV channel, what is it, like channel 320 or something?
I think it's 230.
230 or 320, one of those, whichever one of us has dyslexia is the one that has it.
Yeah,
wrong.
I think both of us, but
but is there anything they air on that channel that they don't already just air on their website?
No.
It's the same.
On their app. They have an app, so.
Oh, I just assumed everything that was on the app was also on the website.
Yeah. It's all the same. It's all mirrored. It's 100% mirrored. The app is obviously the best way to access their content from their viewpoint, because, an app has more programmability than YouTube or a website.
I wonder who's to blame for the stupid decision of what would make the donors happy, whether it's the donors or whether it's Miscavige, because the idea that Scientology's whales will be amazed at saying, we got a direct TV channel. Yeah. There's no way any of those donors watch direct TV.
A few of them, a bunch of them went out and got it just because they could.
Right. Yeah, probably.
Yeah. I mean, my next door neighbors have it. I don't have it. I don't see a lot of dishes around. And I'm on the West Coast. Well, you're on the East Coast. Just so you know, DirecTV is mostly on the coasts.
Well, but the thing is, the whole idea of content, of platforms and channels is distribution, reaching as many people as possible. Imagine being doing something that indicates you have no idea you can reach the entire world for free on YouTube and be like, we're going to pay millions of dollars a year to stick our content on channel 230 or 320 of direct TV to reach a contingent of people that you're like, what, you think those people don't have access to the internet? You think those people don't have access to YouTube?
Well, most people watch YouTube on their phones, and most people watch apps on their phones.
Yeah.
So, but I really think they do know. I suspect that they absolutely do know. And the reason I say that is because they have mind-blowingly sophisticated internet, SEO, reputation management, outside people working for them.
Yeah.
So there's no way that they don't know. What they wanted to do was they just wanted bragging rights. They paid $10 million just to have bragging rights, just to say, we have a TV station, because you can't say those words unless you purchase something somewhere, right? But, you're not on Spectrum, you're not on any other cable service, you're not on Dish TV, you're not on anywhere. You're just in this one little teeny corner of the world, which it took the AT&T board about 2 seconds to approve them being on, because they're like, this is money for nothing,
Guys, I don't know if there's any way to see how many unique viewers DirecTV has or a channel on DirecTV has. I haven't even looked into it, but I can tell you that just my YouTube channel has 950,000 unique viewers per week. And I don't pay $30 million for a studio and $3 million a year for broadcast rights. Like, Scientology just throwing tax exempt money down the toilet for these ridiculous PR gimmicks like Scientology TV. Like, there's no way their channel gets as many unique viewers as my free little YouTube channel.
No, the only people that watch it are Scientologists. Nobody else watches it.
Right.
That tells you right there. You know how many there are. You did the math. I watched you unpack the whole math.
Yeah.
So, it's like, what, 35,000? They have 35,000 viewers. And
max.
by the way, the studio was 100 million, just to get the numbers straight.
100 million to buy the studio?
No, by the time they were done, I think they paid 70 million for it. But by the time they were done with the renovations, and by renovations, I'm also and putting in the infrastructure and making all the equipment purchases, they were 100 million.
100 million.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
As my youngest daughter would say, do you know how many electric bicycles you could buy me for that much money?
Yeah, well, that's only going to go up. That as she gets older, that's going to go up.
Okay, let's take a look at some of these comments here. Jacob Harkey says, I knew David Miscavige must have had serious beef with Russia when the church suggested that Leah emigrate there in one of their attacks on her. Oh, that's funny. That's did
crazy.
Say that.
Yeah, that's really crazy.
They said if Leah has such a problem with free speech, maybe she should emigrate to Russia.
Right.
Oh, wow. Okay, Lady Lou Bricant, what is your estimate on how many members of Scientology there are now compared to 10 years ago? Do you think they're still getting new recruits? So we just touched on this. I haven't done a good job, and I haven't really even tried to specifically isolate the year-over-year decline of Scientology. We take the starting point. It's sort of been generally accepted from statements from Mike Rinder and other people who are at that level of management, that there was perhaps at the peak of Scientology about 100,000 active members. Are you meaning to bring those comments up on the screen?
No. I meant to do another one. You want to know what? Speaking of persons, speaking of persons with disabilities, I have a disability when it comes to bringing comments up. No, so I was bringing a comment up that said, go over to Mitch Briscoe's channel and make sure you subscribe and like. That's
okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Please carry on.
We'll get back to that.
Yeah.
Perhaps in the late 80s, early 90s, there was at the most about 100,000 active members at a time. Now, I put a spreadsheet together a few months ago, or did a video about it again, showing that if they announced L. Ron Hubbard himself had reincarnated and returned, and they were announcing the release of OT 9 and 10 at the same time, and they announced an event, and they gave like a month's notice, that perhaps you could scrape 35,000 members out of all the nooks and crannies of all the people who've left, they don't even consider themselves Scientologists, but maybe you could get them back in to come to a L. Ron Hubbard Has Returned event. You maybe could scrape together 35,000 people. But on a day-to-day basis, like as far as like people who actually call themselves Scientologists, it's probably not more than 20,000 in the world. It's hard to say exactly how quick it's going down year over year. So I don't even try to put numbers on that. They are still getting new recruits. They're just losing members faster than they're gaining new members. And, you know, a lot of their new recruits come through Scientology's business consulting front groups. You know what I learned today, Mitch?
Nope.
The famous Hollander consultants from back in the day,
Right.
they've renamed themselves Silken Management because there was so much bad PR surrounding Hollander and Scientology.
Wow.
I was familiar with Silken. I thought it was a new group that popped up. I didn't realize it was the old Hollander folks.
And they're still wise. They just rebranded.
Oh yeah. Totally.
Wow.
Okay. So let's see.
I just have to mention, I don't know where the comment is, but somebody said that Americans for Disabilities doesn't count. It is not required by churches. I never knew that. So I always thought that Gold had bribed the county to not have to, but apparently churches, but you'd think the reason that churches don't have to do it is you wouldn't have to tell churches to do it. They would care so much, they would do it automatically.
I know, it tells you all you need to know, and they're like, oh, we don't have to put in wheelchair ramps, then we're not going to.
Yeah, we're not going to do it.
Because, you know, Miscavige is like, are you kidding? We would never let people with wheelchairs on this property. Get out of here. We don't need ramps.
Yeah, I imagine the girl with no arms who got her pilot's license at 16 showing up at a church saying, hey, I saw my documentary on your station, and I would really love you guys. I want to get some of what you got. And they're like, no, get out of here. You can't hold the cans.
Yeah, exactly.
Go.
Okay. Oh, wait. No, this was for you here. Joe Duceppo. Hey, Mitch, do you think Russian Scientologists are simply taking up Scientology's offer to move to, for example, USA, Europe, to get away from Putin's Russia? Dictators both.
Yeah, I think partially, yes. I think they're definitely worried about their money. They're rich Russian. They got a lot of money. You know, I imagine when the Ukrainian war broke out, that a bunch of them were at flag freaking out because their credit cards were about to not work anymore. So they were about to be getting calls from the registrar saying, hey, your card's not going through, because, you know, they started to ban certain financial transactions between Russia and the rest of the world. So I think a lot of them are very concerned. They want to get money out. They don't want to be there. But that doesn't mean they don't like Putin. And that doesn't mean that they love America. I mean, they love Scientology, but
I wonder what that means for all the Russians. I wonder what that means for all the Russians that are here on tourist visas or R1 religious visas or anything when those come up for renewal.
Oh, who knows? I mean, I don't know. I'm sure the ones that are from Ukraine are not going to have a problem. They're going to absolutely be allowed to stay.
Yeah. Hey, if there's anyone out there who, for some reason, through personal experience or expertise, knows what is happening with Russians in the U.S. on visas that are coming up for renewal, this could be a huge problem for Flag and their Russian Sea Org members.
I mean, are there any Russians in Clearwater that aren't Scientologists?
Probably a few, but wow,
randomly.
I never thought of that. Hey, so if anyone has any info about that, you can email me at growingupinscientology@gmail.com. Okay, Telperion says, do you think Scientology needs to rotate the people observing this stream? If not, someone gets the information dump of their life. Ever considered addressing them? Want to see them bail and talk to you? We do address them all the time, actually.
I think so.
So the people who watch these
they
channels,
don't have enough people to rotate. I'm sorry to insert that, but
no, you're right. They don't have enough people to rotate.
Yeah, that house is on fire. I
don't know how they have enough people to even watch all of our content.
Yeah, I don't think they are watching at all. I don't know. I thought about the other day. I have no idea what they're doing.
I hope they are. I feel like we bring a bit of joy and levity and humor to their otherwise mundane existence. Yeah, for sure. And especially some of us, like, you know, like I worked with a lot of those guys. I worked with them. I knew them, you know, what they were like. Yeah. You know. Oh, that's right. Dave Bowen says Scientology definitely has a channel on Spectrum in Tampa. That's right. I forgot about that. Right. That's a local just for Tampa. Yeah. But and again, you go, why? That's it. Yeah, exactly. Because the donors are there and they love it. They turn their TV on and they see Scientology on TV. It's like people who watch the ads that they show on the Super Bowl. They don't know
that they're in one of only 7 cities where those ads are showing. They think everybody watching the Super Bowl, all 3 billion people are seeing those ads. And they're not, because they're spot buys in just the markets where there's a lot of Scientologists.
Right. Right. I'm still blown away by the fact that they spent $100 million on the KCET studios.
Yeah, and then keep in mind, a lot of the renos were done by the staff. A lot of the, scraping the mortar out of the bricks and polishing all those old factory steel mullions. I mean, the place is beautiful. It's, people should go to the Scientology TV. You're not helping them at all in any way by watching. It doesn't help them, and they don't capture IP addresses. Watch the video on the studio itself if you really want to see what your tax dollars are underwriting.
Yeah,
that place, they went to the best infrastructure company in the world who installs digital infrastructure and motion picture studios, and they basically said, because those guys, all they do is upgrades. They come in and do upgrades. They don't do from the ground up, right? And Scientology went to them and said, now, if you were going to do a studio the way you would do it from scratch, how would you do it? And they said, fine, we'll pay you to do that. So it's really impressive.
Is it fair for me to say they didn't need that studio, or do you think there's an argument that they did need it?
Well, yeah, they needed it. They absolutely, they needed a place. Well, they needed it because David Miscavige needed a place to work where he didn't feel threatened by the FBI. And I'm pretty sure he was thinking that they were going to raid gold, and he was worried about that. So he really needed to get out of there. But also, Golden Era Productions was envisioned and established by L. Ron Hubbard as a film studio, and then Miscavige turned it into a film studio, and then a bunch of other things that made life there miserable, interrupted film production 4 to 6 times a year. Mark Headley and I have talked about this. We're going to talk about it more. So he needed to get event production out of there. He needed to get it somewhere else. So that's one of the main reasons he opened the studio, was to move event production away from gold. And then, COVID hit and they stopped doing international events. I don't know what they did with all those people, but, so I think he really needed it for that reason, because it was just like, event production was killing gold.
Well, that's kind of what I thought is like, what I was going to say is, if I was one of these Scientologists that was still working at one of these orgs that hasn't been able to afford buying their new building and renovating it yet, I would be furious knowing that Miscavige dropped $100 million on a property they didn't really need. Although, that's why I asked the question, because my next thought was, this is probably one of the real estate purchases he technically did need. He technically did need it, because having people go up to Golden Era Productions requires clearances and security, and it's a pain in the ass. And it makes more sense to have a multimedia production facility right in Hollywood where anybody can get to it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But you keep in mind that everything that they were doing at Gold, they're still doing. They're making films. People are still going up there. When Valerie Haney was up there as one of the talent people, there's somebody replaced her. I mean, that's a going operation. They do all the film type stuff for the network. I mean, they're always going to redo the tech films. So they're always going to do that. They're always going to have people come up there and do clearances. And, just Scientology media production just added to the whole mix. The only thing it took from Gold was the event production. But It didn't take film production, and event production was interrupting film production. So with them gone, now film production can go 365. So, but they didn't have to spend $100 million. And those people, like you said, who were looking, saying, hey, what about my org? They could have easily done it for 50. It didn't, and then opened up a bunch of orgs. It didn't have to be. It's insane. It's a total statement for, they give tours and people are blown away. I mean, Gensler Architects designed all the upgrades. The guys that designed all the ideal org buildings.
Righto. All right, before we jump, let me show everyone your YouTube channel. If you're not already subscribed to Mitch Brisker, you can go find him at Mitch Brisker on YouTube, at Scientology, The Big Lie. And hey, you interviewed Caroline Mustard recently.
Yeah.
Who was marketing exec int, one of the most senior Scientology executives.
Right.
Has she, I haven't had a chance to watch the interview. When did she leave Scientology?
Oh, she left Scientology like 15 years ago.
Well, it's funny. That sounds like a long time ago, but these days,
yeah. No, she left a long time ago. She's like done. She's never spoken out. I mean,
but I mean, these days, that's not that long ago. Honestly,
No,
I mean,
really
I guess as I get older, 15 years just doesn't seem like that long ago anymore.
Yeah. Speaking of which, you got a birthday coming up, right?
How did you know?
Because you said it. Hey, what day's your birthday? I'm just curious.
September 29th.
Oh, mine's the 26th. That's the reason.
Oh,
yeah. That's weird.
I'm only a few years younger than you. Can you believe that?
Yeah, only a few. Anyway, if I don't see you that day, happy birthday.
Why did I mention Carolyn? Oh, because it's a cool interview you did recently with someone who hadn't spoken out before.
Yeah.
Was she marketing executive after Ronnie?
No. She moved on to another post when Ronnie came in. She hired me. She was like over Jeff Hawkins, over the whole Dianetics thing. She's the one who was ordered by Norman Starkey. You need to solve this problem. You need to get this thing going, because he was ordered by Miscavige. I think they were originally ordered by L. Ron Hubbard to get that going. So then she was in LA. She's a very cool woman. I mean, she's like, we were dear friends. And so she was over that whole Dianetics thing. So she was, in essence, marketing exec international. She went on to some other posts when Ronnie took over.
Yeah, I get it. Very cool. So anyway, lots of cool stuff over on Mitch's channel was my point there.
Thank you.
And so you good? We can wrap it up here?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm good.
Awesome.
I said my piece.
Awesome. Thanks for hanging out with us this afternoon, you guys. And thank you, as always, to everybody who watches until the very, very end. And we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.